What's going on, everybody? My name is Mike Cooper, and this is your Rebel Daily Drive. Granted, I love the name, gonna always keep it, but I gotta start recording for you guys more often. So I'm trying to drop as much content as possible while we're in this dead period before football gets back and rolling. But today, we are gonna start, before we get into our content today, I promised that I would do the first drawing to win whoever won a free lunch with our partner collab with Lefty J's Barbecue. We are going to do two during this episode. We are going to do the first one right now. These are for the people who entered on Twitter. If you did not enter on Twitter, this is not for you. So you just have to be patient. I will do the Instagram entry at the very end of this episode. But today's topic, we're going to talk about which 5 impact transfers are going to make the biggest impact for UNLV football. Well, you could go through many. In this day and age of college athletics, transfer portal is going to be inevitable. So we're going to figure out, and I'm going to put my opinion on which 5 players are going to have the biggest impact in 2026 for this Rebel program. Before we get into that, as I always drop at the beginning of each episode, this episode is brought to you by Vegas Varsity and Lefty J's Barbecue. But Vegas Varsity, you're home for any Vegas gear that you could ask for. Buy my merch, which you can see in the background. Hats, t-shirts, any Vegas Gold Knights gear, Raiders gear. He has some great Fernando Mendoza gear as well, if you're a Raider fan, to get 10% off of your order. That 10% is actually kicked back to me, so I'm able to help cover the team on the road and help cover my travel expenses. The more you buy, the more road games I can go to, and I want to get you guys as much content as I can. So make sure you use my promo code SSM10. So, as I mentioned, we are going to do the first drawing, which is the Twitter entries for the Lefty J's Barbecue. That one? Yes. The Lefty J's Barbecue free lunch drawing. Here we go. Good luck to everybody who entered. And the winning page is at UNLV Rebels Info. Congratulations at UNLV Rebels Info. I will send you a DM with the coupon if you would like to claim your ticket. If you don't, I will do this drawing again on the next episode. But thank you for everyone who participated on Twitter. I'm going to try to do more of these leading up to the season, throughout the season. The Instagram drawing is about to come back up right now. So hang tight. We're going to get there. But let's talk about the transfer portal and the impact transfers that UNLV can have for this upcoming 2026 season. As everybody knows, the Rebels are no longer one of the best turnaround stories in college football. They're a program now with real expectations, and that is a much harder thing to manage, especially with the unrealistic expectations that some of these fans have from basketball, which is very, and the fans in Vegas have, which is a very bandwagon city. So winning can change everything for this program. And they've been winning over multiple years. And now that changes the way everybody is looking at this program. Just so you guys know, in a little history of what's going on, over the last 3 seasons, UNLV's won 30 games. Rebels went 9-5 in 2023, 11-3 in 2024, and 10-4 in 2025. For a program that only had 2 9-win seasons from 1978 to 2022, that's a complete shift in the perception of this football program. And UNLV is not trying to convince people to say, hey, this program belongs anymore. They're trying to prove that they're here to stay, and they're here to win the new Mountain West. And that's why this year's transfer class was not just about adding players to build out a roster. It's trying to fill the holes on Dan Mullen's roster that he saw from 2025 to build on 2025 to make this team the best team in the new Mountain West. To me, there's 5 names that stand out. And some of those names are going to be pretty obvious. They've gotten the preseason recognition. But some of them, you may be like, oh, that's intriguing, but it makes sense. The 5 names that I'm going to talk about in this episode: Jackson Arnold, obviously highly coveted, highly profiled quarterback transfer out of Oklahoma and Auburn. He is vying with Alex Orji. As I've said, I think it's his job to lose. for the starting quarterback job to replace Anthony Calandria. Avery Helm, the defensive back transfer from TCU in Florida. Cam Santee, the highly coveted linebacker transfer from Holy Cross. Kenyon Burnett, the tight end transfer from Arizona. And then Jackson Brown, the offensive lineman coming in from Cal via Pitt. Those are 5 different guys who are going to fill 5 different needs for this team in 2026. You have quarterback, corner, linebacker, tight end, offensive line. Those are part of a spine of a football team. And obviously, the biggest name that we're going to talk about on this list is Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold was brought in after two stops, Oklahoma and Auburn. He spent last year at Auburn. As I'm going to go through kind of what we're talking about, I'm going to have some highlight clips up. So let me get those. Let me get the clip up of Jackson Arnold real quick. Not that. Actually, I want to share that, but I don't want to share the sound. Hold on. My bad. All right. Now I'm going to pull myself to the bottom. I'm going to be here in a little corner, just like I'm a fan, just like you. So we got because quarterback almost always become the biggest name. But in this case, the attention makes sense. UNLV needed a quarterback after Anthony Calandria transferred to Nebraska following his Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year season. This is not a normal vacancy. Obviously, in the portal area it is. But losing that kind of production at quarterback can change the entire way people view a team. Arnold is a fascinating answer at quarterback for UNLV because his profile is both exciting and complicated based off of his history and how he plays. He's a former 5-star recruit and one of the most talented quarterbacks in the class of 2023. That matters because the tools are there. As we can see, he can pass, he can run. He has arm mobility, playmaking ability, and to make defense account for him on every snap. The production has been uneven at both stops, but the upside, I think, especially going down to the Mountain West level, is real. Very similar to the situation that Anthony Calandria was in. In Oklahoma, Arnold threw for 1,984 yards, 16 touchdowns while adding 560 yards rushing on 4 scores. In 2025 at Auburn, he threw for 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns while rushing for 311 and a team high 8 touchdowns at Auburn. The passing numbers weren't there. And they didn't match what is, he is hyped to be coming out of high school, but the rushing production explains why, and the hype around his passing ability that was there, it shows why this fit is so interesting. You're kind of looking at hold on. You're kind of looking at a interesting overall piece in what Jackson Arnold is. There's going to be a lot of talk of what he can do, what he can't do, what his past has been. There's going to be a lot of trolling from different fan bases. But, in Dan's system, Dan is a quarterback guru. He's been known for that for his times at Mississippi State, also at Utah, also at Florida, with what he did at all 3 of those programs. Sorry, hold on one second. But he doesn't have to be perfect to be dangerous. He has to be efficient, and he has to keep the offense on schedule and dynamic enough, like Calandria did, to make defense respect him in the run game. The quarterback is not separate from the run game. Obviously, we saw that last year in our first real look in Dan Mullen and Corey Dennis' system. Calandria ran the ball. He was the second leading rusher on the team. So replacing all his production is obviously going to be a difficult task. But with a weaker Mountain West, a just as talented guy coming in, if not more talented, that's what Mullen is betting on. The version of the version of Jackson Arnold that he's betting on is the version that can make defense stress. The quarterback is not separate from the run game, like I just said. If linebackers crash down, he can pull it and run. That's going to free up passing lanes. That's going to free up running lanes for Jet Thomas or whoever is going to be the number 2 running back. Mainly Jet. That's going to open the box. He can take advantages of the 8-man fronts. If the coverage takes a step back because they know he can run, obviously it's going to open up more lanes for everybody. And if protection breaks down and the offensive line can't contain, like we saw at times last year, the play doesn't have to die. And that's, one of the bright spots of what Anthony Calandria did. And that's something that Jackson Arnold can continue to replicate. Obviously, the risk is obvious. I didn't mean to, say obvious twice, but you get my point. Arnold is now at his 3rd school. He's had flashes, but he's never settled into one place and become a finished version of himself. Obviously, nobody's asking him to say, hey, go be a Heisman contender. But if you're going to be the starter at UNLV, for this team to be successful, he's going to need to put up Calandria level numbers, which the minimum expectation should be first team All Mountain West and offensive player of the year. Granted, I don't think he'll get to that level. I don't think that level is realistic because obviously there's other players, especially on this UNLV roster, that deserve Mountain West player of the year. But this team needs him to be dependable. They need him to protect the football. They need him to create explosive plays and explosive runs and hit enough throws downfield to keep the offense from shrinking, becoming very one-dimensional, and then keying on Jet Thomas. So, and 95% of the success that UNLV is going to have in 2026 is going to hinder on whether Jackson Arnold can lead them to the places that this team and Dan Mullen want them to go to. Let's talk about the next guy. I've been asked to talk about him. He's a very coveted recruit. He was picked by Phil Steele, first team all conference. And that is Avery Helm. Avery Helm missed spring ball due to an injury. I'm not sure exactly what that injury was. I don't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't bother to ask. So that's my fault. But he did miss most of spring ball and the spring game with a injury. Avery Helm is the defensive back who can change a game. And it's very obvious from his stats, his highlights. He's taken a step back to come to the UNLV level. Granted, we've seen corner transfers before, maybe not with the first team all conference coming in right off the bat pedigree that Avery Helm has, but this is going to be an impact player in Paul Gunther's defense. I mean, obviously, if you just look at the start of what he brings, just the Power 4 experience that he brings. He played at TCU in the Big 12. He played at Florida in the SEC. He played in 22 games and made 13 starts at Florida before he transferred to TCU, where he played 15 games. His best season came with the Horned Frogs back in 2023, where he started all 11 games that he played in. He finished with 22 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and 5 pass breakups. At Florida, he started 9 games as a redshirt freshman back in 2021. So obviously still, too, the familiarity is there with Dan from his days at Florida. But that season at Florida, he had 22 tackles and 3 pass breakups in the SEC. So the talent is there. The production is there. And the trust factor that Dan is going to give him because of the familiarity is going to be there. And obviously, coaches don't really play young corners in those type of conferences. They play because they want a good story or because they want to. They're playing those young corners in those levels because they believe that they can survive on the outside, tackle in space, and handle the weekly pressure of every offense that's thrown at them in those, especially in the Big 12, the air raids and things like that, offenses like that. That's you're not throwing in a freshman that can get beat. You're throwing in a freshman that can play. The question is going to be his health. Obviously, he came in. He's already injured. He's already been hurt. He missed spring. He missed 2024 because of injury. He missed 2025. Only played in 4 games in 2025 because of injury. UNLV is betting on what he's been and what he still can be, and if he can stay healthy. If Avery Helm can stay healthy, he gives the Rebels a number 1 veteran corner that this team needs in Paul Gunther's defense. They need a vocal point on the boundary that can protect the passing game, really, which was the biggest weakness on this defense. Honestly, the whole defense was very, very, very bad last year. But if there was any strength that the defense had, it was Maris Brown. It was LaTerrence Welch. It was Jaheim Joseph. It was Jake Pope. Did they get burned? Yeah. Were they on the field a lot? Yeah. But now you add Avery Helm with a Jake Pope. You hope that Quindarius Keys takes that next step. You hope that other players like Trey Fulton can step up and take the next leap that they need to take. And the younger guys that came in that I'm not going to mention, but London Cleveland's, the Tony Nakubu, the kid from Arizona State. I can't pronounce his name. I'm not going to try because I'll butcher it and it's going to sound inappropriate if I do butcher it. But those guys as well. If Helm could take this step and make with Jake Pope to control this boundary in the secondary, those other guys are going to be able to fill in around them. And that's a big if, because it's a projection on if Helm can stay healthy. Obviously, Phil Steele sees what we all can see. Phil Steele believes in Avery Helm just like we all do. But it's going to be interesting. But he's impact transfer number 2. And the second most important, I think, player that you should watch for in this 2026 transfer class. The next one is Cam Santee. Cam Santee was kind of up and down in spring. He's been very vocal. He wants to take the leadership role. He wants to take that next step. So the Rebels need an answer in the middle. Marcel McDuffie is gone, but Mike Shear does return. Mike Shear did develop Jackson Woodard with Barry Odom. No, now, am I saying that Cam Santee needs to step in and be Jackson Woodard? No, I'm not. That's unrealistic. He has 1 year in the system. But he is one of the most interesting additions because the production at Holy Cross was there, and the value from that production is there at the FCS level. Can that translate to the Mountain West level? And then can he take that next step in the middle of the defense to replace Marcel in the middle of that defensive core? Because obviously, if we look at Mountain West teams, they're bigger, they're faster, they're more athletic. Windows close quicker. The offensive lines are bigger. They're different. Spacing on the field is different. Santee's going to have to step in and prove that his production translates to the Mountain West level. But the production that he had at Holy Cross is hard to ignore. In 2025, Santee started all 12 games, had 110 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and 5 pass breakups with 5 forced fumbles. He was first team All-Patriot League. He led the conference in tackles for loss and forced fumbles and finished third in tackles. Nationally, he finished tied for second in forced fumbles and ranked in the top 25 in total tackles and tackles for loss. So the production is there. And that's just not a linebacker piling up tackles after the play is over. That's disruption. That's playmaking. Santee got to the backfield. He affected the quarterback. He showed how he could be involved in coverage with his pass breakup ability. But most importantly, he took the ball away. 5 forced fumbles in 1 season is a lot. And it shows a player who hits you hard, hits you with force, and attacks the football when he gets there. For UNLV, that's going to be a key for Mike Shear and Paul Gunther in this defense. Can he take the next step and go to the next level, become the impact transfer that we need him to be in the middle of that defense? Because him and Blysing, if Blysing can take the next step into the all-Mountain West player that he can be, if Santee, who was picked 4th team all-conference by Phil Steele for preseason, can take that step into that role and be better than what he's projected to be, put up the production like Marcel did and Jackson did in Shear's linebacking system that's built now within a similar system that Barry Odom ran, but it is under Paul Gunther. It's going to make a huge impact, and it will take and elevate this team to the level it needs to be. It will show, but we're going to see right off the bat, it's going to be tested against Memphis with the linebacking play. With the whole defense in general, it's going to be tested against Memphis, but the linebacking play in particular is going to be tested right away. So what steps can Santee make? And the defense is going to need negative plays. They're going to need drive-changing moments. The defense needs players who can get the defense off the field, which this team very struggled with last year. Because offensively, they were fine. They were one of the best offenses in the country. The defense was gassed and giving up yards and couldn't get off the field on a consistent basis. And you need players like Avery Helm. You need players like Cam Santee to take those next steps to be able to build so the offense can get off get on the field, and the defense can get off the field and be rested for when the late game action happens. And they're not gassing, giving up 400, 500 yards on 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row basis anymore. And I will say this, Santee doesn't need to be the best linebacker in the conference for this to work. He needs to be reliable. He needs to be high. He needs to be a high volume piece who brings physicality and activity to the front seven. And that's where he's going to make his big impact. And he's going to take, if he can take those steps and the production can translate, that fourth team all conference is going to become first or second team. The defense is going to take that next level. It elevates UNLV's defense as a whole, and it elevates their football team as a whole to get UNLV over the hump and to the next level to get to the potential CFP Mountain West Championship expectations that are on this program. Let's talk about another offense addition. He was a very highly touted tight end coming out of high school. He was a very highly touted player overall. He comes in from Arizona. Kenyon Burnett is somebody that Dan Mullen's offense needs. Dan Mullen's offense thrives when the tight end is contributing. We did not see a lot of contribution from the tight end position last year. It had its moments. Elskins up in the seam. Ibarki's Gums had his moments. Matt Burns didn't really contribute. They contributed more. Him and Beltre Jefferson and Jay Beasley more contributed in the blocking game. Said that Elskins was really more focused in the blocking game. But what thrives in Dan Mullen's offense is tight ends who can get open, who can get up the seam, who can create plays. Now, you're not asking them to be a superstar in Dan Mullen's system. Granted, he's had some with Aaron Hernandez and Kyle Pitts and others when he was at Florida. Am I saying Kenyon Burnett needs to be Kyle Pitts? No, I'm not. But production is needed from that role. And he comes in at Arizona. He played in 34 games. He had 7 starts, 26 catches, 272 yards, and a touchdown. His best season came in 2024 when he had 18 catches, 217 yards, and a touchdown. He's very raw still. So the numbers aren't going to say, hey, this is a highly touted production guy that's coming in who needs to be featured in an offense. But it suggests that the Rebels are adding a player whose role could become more valuable than the raw production that's there. A tight end of Burnett's size and experience can make life easier for Jackson Arnold or Alex Orji. He helps in protection. If he can work the middle of the field and the seams and become a viable threat over the middle that Arnold or Orji can hit, he becomes a threat in the passing game. If he can also work the middle of the field and become a big target for Orji or Arnold on third downs and in the red zone, it will open up the passing game more than it was open up last year. Last year, it was very wide receiver heavy in the passing game. You need the tight end production in this passing game, especially in Dan Mullen's system. So with this wide receiver room being as young as it is and with a lot to prove, you still have a lot to prove in the tight end room as well. And especially for a guy like Kenyon Burnett, it's going to be very interesting how he fits in. But, quarterbacks are shaped by the structure around them, whether that's going to be Arnold or Orji. A dual threat quarterback can be able to create on his own, but the offense becomes much easier to manage when he has safe answers to throw to, safe outlets to throw to, and can make easy throws, and he has formations that can create leverage before the snap. And Burnett is somebody who can come in and potentially help with that. So Burnett obviously is not going to be the centerpiece of the offense. He's going to be a piece. If he can give UNLV 25 to 35 catches and he can block well enough to stay on the field and becomes a very reliable scoring target in the red zone, that's going to be meaningful. And especially if he can become a reliable target on third down in the middle of the field as a safety valve, Rebels haven't had that in a couple of years, and that's something that Burnett can bring to this offense, and it's going to, expand beyond the box score, especially if you can stay on the field with reliable blocking. The last transfer we're going to talk about is Jackson Brown. Offensive linemen, they're not flashy, but the Rebels brought in some new pieces to build around Austin Boyd and Will Thomas, who are going into their senior years. They lost a lot on the front as well, but Jackson Brown comes in with something that every contender in most G6 programs struggle to stockpile, and that's playable offensive line depth with major conference experience. I mean, Jackson Brown has appeared in games at Cal and at Pitt. He started at right tackle against Clemson last year. He's an older, still not finished, but an older product that can definitely give a boost to this offensive line. UNLV can have the right quarterback. They can have the right play caller. They can have enough skill talent to stretch defenses. But if the line can't protect long enough to push the ball downfield or create enough movement in the run game, the team's going to struggle. And obviously, Jackson Brown was picked second team all conference by Phil Steele. So the talent is there. He is going to make a big impact, whether it's on the right or left side. They kept rotating during spring, so there wasn't really a full slot of where he played. But he's going to be a starter on this offensive line. He's going to make an impact. He's going to help this team protect whoever plays quarterback, whether it's Arnold or Orgy. And he has to be an impact player right away. If you're already getting second team all conference preseason off the bat and you're considered a raw and unfinished product, that's a gem that Dan Mullen may have found and Louis Adazio may have found. And that's really going to help Jet keep him on the field. It's going to help Jalen Glover. It's going to help Darian Jones. It's going to help Orgy. It's going to help Arnold. You need to do everything you can to keep these guys healthy. And Jackson Brown's going to be the key centerpiece. That's not Austin Boyd or Will Thomas. That's going to be the big focus. And now, can other guys take that role? Could it be Tamayason? Could it be BJ Toldo? I don't know. But Jackson Brown is going to, I think, make the biggest impact on the offensive line that's not a returning player. So these are my 5 impact players. I think before I go to the end and end my podcast today, I know it's been a little choppy, but that's okay. Been kind of just trying to figure things out as I go. We need to do the second drawing. Our drawing for, is it that one? Yes, it is. That drawing for the Instagram winners for the second lunch that I'm giving away for Lefty J's. Here we go. Good luck to everybody who entered. Congratulations, 31. You won a free lunch at Lefty J's Hawaiian Barbecue. I'll make sure to DM a coupon. If you don't claim it, I will give it to somebody else. But thank you again for guys tuning in. I think that's all for today. I'm not going to dive in anymore on these transfers. Obviously, they're going to make a big impact. Are they going to make or break UNLV season? The only one I can say that will do that is Jackson Arnold, because if he doesn't start, then we're going to see a very interesting dilemma between him and Orgy. And the Rebels' schedule is too tough off the bat for them to be playing around with the quarterback position. If he starts, he's going to need to make a big impact right away. Same thing with Avery Helm. Avery Helm's going to need to make a big impact right away. But, guys like Kenyon Burnett, they can take a little while to develop, and that's okay. And then guys like Jackson Brown's going to make a huge impact right away. And so is Cam Santee. Cam Santee is going to become a cog of this defense. He's going to be a vocal leader. You can see it a little bit in the spring. You can see where he can go and how much better he makes this defense. Yeah, and I think that obviously it's not going to be this group is going to have a major say in whether the Rebels stay in Mountain West title contention and the playoff contention or not. So thank you guys as always for tuning in. As always, keep it locked in with the Scarlet Standard for all your UNLV coverage. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share everything you see from my page. I try to get you as much content as possible. Maybe a little annoying because I post every single day something different, but I try to keep you guys and get you guys as much content as possible. As I always say, stay loud, stay loyal, bring back Hey Reb, and go Rebels.